The Colts just laid a total egg at Lambeau in a loss to the Packers, and it might have been more costly than the points on the board. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first post-game listen. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Hello, everybody. This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of HorseshoeHuddle.com. I'm your resident Indianapolis Colts media member of the site, and Zach is your absolute film nerd who is going to have a really fun time digesting this one throughout the week. But no, we are here to just, eulogize this game that was the Colts in their 16-10 loss to the Packers. On the surface, a 16-10 loss, it's a one-score game. But the Colts were really never in control of this one. It just so happened they weren't facing Jordan Love. And God, this game might as well have been 36-10. You know what I mean? So we'll obviously go over, our normal format for this. Anthony Richardson, the offense and the defense, what stood out to us both positively and negatively. I know we're going to want to take a lot of negative from this one, but there were some things to kind of hitch ourselves to a little bit. So before we dive into Anthony, let's go ahead and talk about some of these injuries. So DeForest Buckner and Laiatu Latu both left the game in the second half. I didn't see Latu get injured. It was just reported afterward that he suffered a hip injury and was going to be out for the game. Buckner, though, I think we all saw that. He helped make a stop on a play and just kind of landed down on his lower right leg, got twisted up under there a little bit. He had to be helped off the field. Was clearly, in pain and then very, very frustrated on the sideline. So we're going to hope for the best for that one regardless, but obviously he is the heartbeat of the defense, and it is an already very poor defense. Losing him for any amount of time would be a huge issue. So yeah, we'll find out more about that in the next 24 to 48 hours, I'm sure, Zach. But let's talk about Anthony Richardson. This one, of course, you cannot box score scout this guy. We say it every week. There's a lot of nuance to this evaluation here. So on the surface, 17-34, which is of course only 50% for 204 yards. His YPA this week was dang near cut in half from last week, just a 6.0, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. So I will go into this saying that this was arguably his worst performance. This was his worst start of the 6 that we've got so far, just in terms of the bad plays, some of them being truly bad. But man, once again, the guy did not receive a lot of help. These numbers could have looked a lot better if everyone around him was also clicking.
Yeah, I definitely want to take this from the angle of, again, this is his 6th career start in the NFL. It's only, his 25th since high school. It's really not that many starts for him. And a lot of this process with Anthony Richardson is him getting on-field reps and understanding the good and the bad that comes with it. And we've seen this for a lot of quarterbacks that are similar molds of Anthony Richardson. Jordan Love last season was pretty poor that first half of the season, and he was a guy who had sat for multiple years before he finally got that opportunity. You can go back to Josh Allen's rookie season, his first 10 starts, very, very down, a little bit of up, but a lot of down, and there Jalen Hurts' first 10 starts, not very good. So when we talk about Anthony Richardson here, we're not going to make excuses for him. We're going to talk about the good and the bad and where he needs to be better, but a lot of it has to be contextualized with this was kind of expected. It's going to be a roller coaster with him, especially the first half of this season. It wouldn't even shock me for the entirety of this season. It's going to be very roller coaster with him. And you're going to have games like this where mostly duds. Honestly, I didn't expect him to turn around at the very end there, which will go into one of his positives was, the ability to get the Colts moving a little bit in the fourth quarter and making it so the Colts weren't completely out of it. But again, you shouldn't be in those situations at all. But that kind of goes into the roller coaster aspect of Anthony Richardson. He's still young. He's still learning. I'm not too concerned about him. I'm more concerned about 21 other starters or like 19 other starters right now than I am about Anthony Richardson, who's a 22-year-old quarterback still figuring things out. But if we are being honest with his game, the 2 interceptions are ones that can't happen. And I think he knows that. Obviously, he knows that those can't happen. First one, inexcusable, throwing off his back foot, not stepping into it, fading with the pressure. Had Alec Pierce open on that layered over route and just threw it over right to the middle of the field safety. Pierce was going to be open on that play. If he just throws that a little bit lower and leads him, it's a good catch, good chunk gain, and they're right there in the red zone early in the game. So one that you just can't miss. And then the second one, again, Colts are finally moving the ball a little bit, getting down on the other side of the field, cannot throw an interception there, read the high-low route, very, very wrong, did not get the ball to the player it needed to go to. It needed to go to A.D. Mitchell, which I know him and Mitchell have had a horrible chemistry these first 2 weeks, so maybe that contributed to it a little bit, but those 2 interceptions can't happen. A couple other plays missing Jonathan Taylor a little bit on that flat route. Yes, Taylor should have made that catch, but I don't know if Taylor gets there even with the catch because of where the ball placement was. A couple other routes where it's like the ball placement wasn't good enough. So yeah, it wasn't a great day for Anthony Richardson. It wasn't even a good day for Anthony Richardson. So if we're starting with the negatives with him, yeah, those interceptions can't happen, and they were backbreaking. And a couple of those fumbled snaps and stuff can't happen too. But overall, I do think, and I know this is me kind of getting to the conclusion of the segment before we even are at that point right now, but it is part of the peaks and valleys that we're going to get from Richardson, especially in this first half of the season. So long term, I'm still fine with Richardson. You're going to go through a lot of these bumps and bruises. I mean, Jordan Love last year, if we're making that direct comparison still, Love had a game where he had like 120 or 180 yards and 3 picks against the Raiders in the game that they lost 17-13. It's a very similar aspect to this type of game right here that Richardson just had. So these kind of games happen from these big arm quarterbacks who trust their arms too much, and the game hasn't slowed down for them yet because they haven't seen the field that much. So I'm not too out on Richardson or anything like that. These games happen. It sucks it happened in a game against Malik Willis where the Packers were not throwing the ball very much. You'd rather it happen against a really, really good team because you probably weren't winning that game regardless. But still a lot to improve from Richardson. I think there was some good, again, coming back late, hitting Pierce for the touchdown, had a couple of really nice throws up the field to, the one to A.D. Mitchell was a great throw. A couple to Pierce late in the game were really good throws. But overall, not where you want him to be, and hopefully he can keep growing and make the peaks less peaky or the valleys less valley and the peaks a little bit higher there. But overall, not a great day from Richardson and kind of what we expected early in the season.
Yeah, one of the things about him is obviously there's so much you have to like develop within him and how to play within like a normal system and everything. But it turns out he's still very much at his best, like when they're running hurry up and like he's got to use his instincts more often. And there's not some like plan beforehand. Like when they've got to have it and when things speed up, it's kind of when he just takes over and does his thing. But I was so surprised with how poorly the whole team really looked overall, especially, the offense at times. You look at this 17-34 and you look at this, again, 1-score game, just a 6-point loss. This could have very easily, I don't want to say very easily because nothing came easily to them. Like they could have been on the other side of this and just had a super ugly win. Were there like 4 or 5 drops? There were several plays in there where the receiver really should have had it. There were just so many times where it's like, what is going on? There was the deep throw to Mitchell on their final drive where Mitchell cooks his guy and then just lets up, doesn't run through the route. There's just so many miscommunications like that, and then there's the drops and everything. It's like, God, this game really could have gone a bit differently. Even, again, still an ugly win, but a win is a win. I thought, running wise, that's been a big topic of conversation leading into the season. And he's always been, pretty good in the red zone and picking up those short touchdowns and everything. But the Colts said they were going to be intentional about kind of grinding into him, situational running, when to know when you got to have it, and, using your discretion a bit more to really grind out those tough yards. I thought when he decided to take off and run, I thought he had great situational running. There was the 21-yard gain that he had in the second half where he turned the corner and got upfield. And then in the red zone late in the game on the touchdown drive to Alec Pierce, he had that 11-yard run where he met the sticks and they reviewed it and he got it. I thought his rushing performance was awesome. So that was definitely a positive takeaway for me. But, he did have 3 picks. So obviously the third pick was the Hail Mary, but he should have had a legitimate 3 picks when they were buried deep in their territory on that final drive. And then the linebacker, Quay Walker, just didn't come down with it. And Alec Pierce, who was one of the other heroes of the game, comes through with the catch off the tip.
That was by design. He was actually throwing it off of Quay Walker's helmet to Alec Pierce. Great throw by Richardson. But no, we're going to have a full breakdown of Anthony Richardson's day on tomorrow's episode, on the Colts Film Room episode tomorrow. So you guys can look forward to that, where we really, again, we won't sugarcoat it. It was a bad game from Anthony Richardson. But again, long term, these are going to happen. I think, I can't remember if Ben and I talked about it on the air last week or right afterwards, where it's like, there's going to be some valleys. Like, there's going to be some valleys. All these type of quarterbacks who go through this, Lamar Jackson's early in his career throwing the ball. I mean, they had him running the ball a ton. Jalen Hurts early in his career could not throw the ball very well. Josh Allen, Jordan Love, like, these happen for these young quarterbacks. It's all about making sure that you shore those things up by, start 10 to 20 in like that range or whatever. And Richardson still isn't at that level yet. So overall, yes, concerning start from Anthony Richardson, not what you want to see. I think there were some positives, but a lot of negatives. And hopefully he can turn the corner from here and make these less prevalent in the future. But bad starts happen. I'm more concerned with 18 to 19 other starters on the team than I am with Richardson right now. But coming up, we're going to get into those other 18 to 19 starters. We're going to talk about the rest of the offense and how, aside from a certain wide receiver who we all thought might have been benched before the season, the offense was stinky doo-doo today. It was just not good enough, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. And first, a word from our pals over at PrizePicks. Just one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you a win on PrizePicks every week in September. So that means when the Colts play the Bears next week, you will get that within the first 5 seconds of the game. Yes, that's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. That's 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Plus, PrizePicks invented the Flex Play, which helps you still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. We talked about 2 things this week: Anthony Richardson over 39 rush yards and Jonathan Taylor over 79. Anthony Richardson was just under that 39 rush yard mark, but Jonathan Taylor blew the 79 yards out of the water today. So really good if you put your money there on PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 off when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game.
And football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. If you go to your friend's house to watch on game days, DoorDash can help you avoid disaster, like the Colts disaster. Maybe your buddy never plans for food or drinks or never has enough of what he orders. Rely on DoorDash instead. Whether game day is incomplete for you without food, drinks, your brewskis, extra batteries for the TV so you make sure it doesn't run out, whatever, DoorDash can be your savior. Me personally, super reliant on DoorDash. My wife's been out of town over a long weekend, and so you know what? I ordered it a time or two. Went with my hometown favorite Yamato for some hibachi express, and it was clutch as always. I love me some Yamato. So use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness. Your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. So we all might want some alcohol, provided through
I wish,
DoorDash after
Jake.
this
I
one,
wish.
right?
I've been sober for almost a year now, and like I'm considering breaking it, man. Like,
It's a rough time out here. But let's start with the positive. Everyone's bingo card through 2 weeks had Alec Pierce being an absolute stud. So he puts up Randy Moss numbers in week 1 and then comes out and is like easily the Colts' most productive wide receiver in this one. Gets a touchdown, his second of the year. He makes another tough catch over the middle. He comes up with that tipped pass, catching it on the ground late in the game when the Colts needed to march that ball and get it out of their own territory. So Alec Pierce is one guy who has absolutely stood up this year. He saw the Colts draft A.D. Mitchell and he said, oh, I should probably kick it into high gear. Very helpful that he has a quarterback that is willing to get him the ball, though.
yeah, over 180 yards receiving now through
So
2 games.
125 last week, 56 today. I'm bad at math, so you can do it. But he also has 2 tuds. So
Yeah. So Alec Pierce, man, he's already like almost like 40% to his total last year, or like
right.
30-something% to his total last year. So Alec Pierce, hats off to what he's done the first 2 weeks. Jonathan Taylor, nice bounce back game on the ground. We're not going to talk about him in the pass game too much because it wasn't very good in the pass game for him.
He did have 32 yards. He did.
Yes. He probably could have caught a few more and maybe been a little bit better in pass protection. But in the run game, really good day from him in the run game. So it was nice to see him and the offensive line get back together. And honestly, the O-line I thought was fine today. Some solid moments in pass protection, good in the run game. Yeah, that guy, I think it was perfectly fine there. Okay, now that we got all the positive out of the way, because that's how we're gonna talk about these segments. The 2 or 3 positives are out of the way. We got to start with Shane Steichen here with the offensive game plan. I know you're working with a very inaccurate quarterback, or not an accurate quarterback, a quarterback who's still figuring things out, seeing the field, and he has some inaccurate moments in Anthony Richardson. He's working with that. He's working with receivers who are not playing up to par right now, aside from Alec Pierce. So I get that a little bit handicapped here, but so far through 2 weeks, I do think a lot of Shane Steichen's worst tendencies as a play caller have been highlighted a lot. The option play on 4th and short is simply something that cannot be called. I mean, even if you had the right personnel on the field, it's still just like, why are you going sideways and backwards on, I think it was 3rd and 1 actually on that call. And then Matt Gay missing the kick afterwards, like just added insult to injury. Simply can't happen. The RPR and RPO game is non-existent right now. I know part of that might be because Richardson doesn't feel comfortable with it, but still, I don't know why that's completely gone. It's a lot of stagnation on the short routes, and maybe that's a Richardson preference, but I'm not a fan of running all these stick and spot routes and stuff. Like, it's just not working in the short game. I don't know why there's no quick screens or like, there's no screen game whatsoever with this offense right now. And it feels like those are easy completions. Get the ball out of Richardson's hands and maybe get that to your A.D. Mitchells or Michael Pittman Jr.'s and get them rolling a little bit so they can gain some confidence. But there's really no layups in this offense right now. It's a lot of play action, overshots, and then it asks Richardson just to be Superman in the 4th quarter these last 2 weeks. And to Richardson's credit, he's done it a little bit in them. But like as of right now, like Shane Steichen needs to really look hard in the mirror and figure something out with his offense, because it's just, he gets too pass happy. He gets a little too out of what works, and they're not really building many layups in the passing game for their young quarterback. It's just not been a good offense right now. So Shane Steichen, just not a great game. Two games in a row, I don't think he's had a great time calling games. And then we also got to talk about Michael Pittman Jr. and A.D. Mitchell in this one, because Pittman struggling to catch the ball a little bit these first 2 weeks and just been really slow and lethargic in his routes. I know he's running a lot of zone beaters and getting to spots, but come on, man, we got to see a little bit more urgency on some of these routes. And then A.D. Mitchell had the game from hell today. He had a illegal formation penalty early in the game. He had a really bad drop at the end of the first half that might have took 3 points off the board for the Colts. Had really bad lack of effort on a couple of these. There was like 2 short route throws to him where he just didn't get his head around for the ball. It's like, these are just like elementary. I mean, A.D. Mitchell might have been responsible for like 4 or 5 of the incompletions in this game. Like, I know last week they were not able to connect, and some of those were on Richardson because it's like those are deep balls you got to hit. But this week it's like no effort, not getting your head around dropping the ball. Like AD Mitchell, man, I know you're a 21-year-old rookie. Like there is some leniency there, but like, oh God, that I mean, it can't get much worse than this from AD Mitchell. So maybe this is rock bottom, but just a brutal showing from AD Mitchell in this one.
They have got so much more on offense than needing to be 100% reliant on Anthony having a perfect game. Like I know you and I differ on this a little bit, but like Jonathan Taylor just being yanked from the game and not playing in the fourth quarter. Like, sure, there were scenarios, like they went super pass heavy, and that's just, he's not their guy for that. But like there were a couple scenarios where he should have been out there, I think, or at least his presence, offering some sort of decoy, or that late run, the option play to Trey Sermon. I don't know if Sermon's the guy for that. It already wasn't a great call. And then you have your least explosive runner out there to run it. Just not great. I totally agree with you. I think there's things they can bake into this offense to just make it a little more seamless and routine. Like there were short throws, there were throws to the running backs and everything, but those were more checkdowns and dump offs. They weren't like design screens with like a convoy ahead or anything like that was designed to like pick up yards after the catch or anything like that. So
yeah,
before we move on to the defense, I did want to kind of throw some kudos to Ashton Dulin and Mo Alley-Cox as well. Mo, I get nervous every time the ball goes to him, and I'm pretty sure, if I saw correctly, I think he took out two guys in one block on a big Jonathan Taylor run. And then Dulin, after making a nice, important 13-yard catch, like a couple plays later, helped open up another big Jonathan Taylor run that Quentin Nelson went and pulled to the right side and opened it up even further. So in totality, I don't know how those guys' days were, but they at least made a couple plays that I was like, okay, very nice.
Yeah. There's a lot to improve on this offense right now. Hopefully, I think Josh Downs will help a lot when he's back next week. Hopefully back next week. But again, the process needs to be cleaner. The Colts need to rely more on the run game. You're paying your running back for that. Use Richardson more in the QB run game to supplement his passing. I know there's a little bit of fear with that, but use him a little bit more in the QB run game. And overall, man, like we got to stop having Richardson be Superman in these fourth quarters. Like there needs to be a positive game flow or positive game situation for where Richardson does not have to be throwing the ball 20 times a fourth quarter. I mean, through 2 weeks, that's what he's had to do. And of course, it's not going to be perfect with a young quarterback in that situation. So overall, the processes need to be cleaner. The game plan needs to be cleaner, and they need better from these wide receivers. Alec Pierce cannot carry this passing offense. So that's not good enough right there. So overall, a lot to improve on offense. Even if that's the better of the two units right now, a lot to improve on offense right now.
Yeah, like it's great that we saw Pierce can do that, but ideally that would not be the case. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the defense. But first, let's talk about more happy times. Let's talk about making memories and going to live events, because we are winding down with the summer, but there's still plenty of concerts and all sorts of outdoor activities, and even ball games, fever games, Colts games indoors because the roof is rarely open. Me personally, I just went to Post Malone a couple days ago. Some of you probably did as well, because I have quite literally never seen a more packed concert in my entire life. So a lot of you guys can probably test. Good show. And you know what? Got to hook up through Gametime. Bought those tickets weeks ago. And you know what? There's nothing better than buying your tickets and it being a seamless process, and you actually get to the venue and enjoy it without any issues from the ticketing side of it, because I think we've all been there before as well. Gametime, they've got a lot of really cool features. They've got their Gametime picks, which means the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, whatever it is. They've also got the lowest price guarantee, which means they'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find cheaper tickets at a comparable area somewhere else. They just take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it, Zach?
It's game time. It's game time, guys. It's definitely.
Did the Colts hear that?
I wish. I wish they did. But it's
Guys, the game has started.
Yes.
All right. So defense wins championships, but not this one. Holy smokes. So the Colts defense gave up over 200 yards on the ground in week 1. And you think, wow, it can't get a whole lot worse than that because Joe Mixon turned back the clock. And then Green Bay exceeds that in the first half. So 261 yards overall on the ground. That's 2 games in a row, well over 200. But that wasn't even like the whole story. Like we went into this one saying like, hey, Colts, we've seen you before allow these young quarterbacks to look like studs. Don't let them do it. Well, I thought Matt LaFleur drew up a great initial setup for Malik Willis, allowed him to be totally comfortable and get into the flow of the game. And, they ran the hell out of the ball. But when they needed to pass, Malik Willis was out there making plays. And when the Colts got him under duress in the backfield, he escaped how many times? 3 or 4 times for productive chain-moving plays.
Yeah. Hats off to Nick Cross for showing up. I mean,
yep.
Good.
You know what? This is so far the season of the guys who we all dogged. Alec Pierce, stud. Nick Cross, stud. Nick Cross has 117 tackles already this season somehow. And he's a safety, and that's not good.
Yeah, hats off to Nick Cross for showing up. Dio had a couple nice stops in the third quarter. Let's get to the negatives now, Jake, because look, I know they only gave up 16 points in this game, but if the Packers had any trust in Malik Willis throwing the ball early in the game, it would have been a 40-something point game for the Packers offense because they just the other team was telling you, we're running the ball every single play. Hey, we're running it unless we're in 3rd and 10. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The Colts were a Josh Jacobs fumble on the 1-yard line from being down 3 scores in the first quarter to a team that was not. They threw the ball 4 times in the first quarter. They ran the ball for 200 yards in the first quarter. And look, again, credit to this Packers offensive staff where they saw what the Texans did last week. They saw, hey, all we got to do is power it out and pinch the edges because those linebackers are not getting there to the edge. Those linebackers are not getting there, and they're having safeties fill, and look what's happening. So credit to the Packers coaching staff for figuring out, hey, we just got to do what the Texans did last week. But yeah, it was the same stuff. It was power runs. It was misdirection. It was reverses and stuff like that. All very effective runs for the Packers. And the Colts had no answer for it. Josh Jacobs turned the clock back. It looked like Josh Jacobs of his, not record-setting, but his league-leading rushing year. So I fully expect Miles Sanders next week to all of a sudden look like the Philadelphia Eagles version of himself when the Colts play the Bears.
DeAndre Swift.
Or DeAndre Swift. Sorry, DeAndre Swift. I knew one of those Eagles running backs ended up there. DeAndre Swift. But yeah, it's very simple stuff. And then, what did the Colts do in the second half? Rolled out some bear front, aggressively jumped on all reverse type plays and stayed home. And they allowed 1 yard a carry in the second half. Where was that in the first half? It's not like they changed up what they were doing. They did the same things because they only had 4 plays in the playbook for the Green Bay Packers offense, but the Colts couldn't stop it. So we said all offseason coming into this year that this Colts secondary was going to be bad. It was certainly going to be bad. And the Colts' only chance of having a decent season on defense was their front 7 being dominant in both the run and the passing game. Through 2 weeks, their secondary has been below average, maybe better than expected, but below average. Their front 7 has been putrid. And I know some of that is because DeForest Buckner got hurt middle of last week, and he was obviously hurt today. No Samson Ebukam is part of that, but their front 7 has just been a train wreck all season long. And a lot of it is the players not playing up to par. A lot of it is this attacking scheme just getting destroyed by these gap runs. And a lot of it is Chris Ballard relying on Taven Bryan to get 60, 70% of the snaps through 2 weeks. I don't know what the expectation here was with the Taven Bryan and Adetomi Adebor. I think Adetomi could be a good pass rusher, but why is he getting all these run snaps? What's going on with all these linebackers? They can't fill runs and they can't get running backs to the ground. It is just an absolute corrosion of everything on defense right now. And it's frankly embarrassing. And it's at the point where it's I see a lot of people saying like, oh, we got to fire Gus Bradley. Oh, we got to fire Chris Ballard. Yeah, I mean, sure, like whatever, like we can talk, like they're not blameless here, but we also got to talk about the players on defense just not playing up to par. Kwity Paye is getting paid a lot of money coming up. And I don't think he was horrible today, but Kwity Paye is getting a lot of money going into next season. Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed are both on their second and third contracts or whatever. Their third contracts, I believe, is what they're both on. DeForest Buckner, I know he was hurt today, but he's on his third contract and making a ton of money. Grover Stewart on his third contract, making a ton of money. There's no excuse. Like, at the end of the day, unless Gus Bradley is literally telling them to let running backs run for 30 yards a carry, it's not like changing the defensive coordinator doesn't all of a sudden make all these guys great. They have to show up to the games. Mm-hmm. So again, these are not children. These are not 20-year-old players where it's like, oh, the coach has to lay into them and really yell at them and all of a sudden they're going to figure it out. No, these are grown men who've been doing this for years. They need to have some pride and actually stop the run. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, they actually have to fill their run gaps. They have to play aggressive and they have to get these running backs because, like, again, it's one thing if you're allowing 4 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry. In the first half, this was like 11 yards a carry. Like, this was Kent State versus Tennessee. This was Purdue versus Notre Dame. You know, I know I'm ruffling some feathers with that one because it was painful for you guys yesterday too. But that's what this was. Like, it's just frankly embarrassing. It can't happen. So, man, I don't know. Like, it just, like, offense, I feel optimistic about the Colts offense figuring it out, at least at the halfway point this year, cleaning up some things and Richardson seeing the game a little bit better. This defense, especially if Buckner is out long-term, which looks very possible with that injury he suffered, I don't know what the solution is here on defense. You got players that are getting paid big money, not showing up to these games and not playing well. And you got rookies that are not playing well whatsoever either, and young players that are not playing well whatsoever. And you got a defensive staff and defensive coaching, you know, whatever their strategy is there, that's just not working. Like, it's just a mess on all fronts right now. And it's not just the GM. It's not just the defensive coordinator. It's not just the players. It's all of it. It's all of it. Like, this was an embarrassment. I know they only gave up 16 points, but to an offense on the other side that's telling you they're running the ball all game long, and then the couple times they pass it, they're throwing the ball all over you. Like, it's an embarrassing showing. They're lucky it was only 16 points. If Jordan Love plays today, it's 50 points. It's looking like Drew Brees and the Saints a couple years ago, back in 2019, when he only had like 2 incompletions. Like, it was just an abysmal showing. And if this is what we're getting from the defense all year, then you can pack up the season right now. I mean, I'm sure you could almost already pack it up now, but if we're getting this from the defense all year, you can pack up the season and go home already because you're not going anywhere with it.
No, you're seeing true regression from guys, like, and things you used to be able to hang your hat on are not there anymore. And like you said, it's a system problem. From the top to the bottom, you know, they have poor depth in a lot of places, and guys they are having to rely on maybe shouldn't even be on the roster. That part's not the player's fault. That's how you put the roster together. The coaching staff has clearly shown to be late to the party to make adjustments on certain things. They also have to work with what they've got. But then the players, just a total lack of execution. Guys who you're used to seeing winning certain matchups or in certain scenarios aren't doing it. They're getting blown off the ball. They're getting stuck on blocks. They're not making simple tackles. Like, how many missed tackles are you going to find on film tomorrow when you go in? So many. And the first half in particular, it's just unbelievable. Like, breaking down in the fundamental, there's just nothing going right. We haven't even gotten to the point where a team can attack the secondary and truly show everybody, oh yeah, this is what we've been complaining about all offseason, because they're getting killed so bad in the run game. Teams don't have to really pass against them other than when they, you know, need a throw to get that big third down conversion that, you know, they're going to get.
And even then they're converting them at a 60-something% clip right now, which is like the worst.
They're doing what they want to do.
Like, there's just nothing, like, there's nothing you can look at with this defense right now to bring you any optimism. And this was a game where they started Rodney Thomas, Samuel Womack, and Taven Bryan in this game. And I mean, that outside of maybe Julian Blackmon coming back and supplanting Thomas, like, you're going to be starting Womack the whole season probably, or Flowers, or whoever it's going to be. You're starting Taven Bryan maybe the whole season if Buckner's injury is serious. Like,
that can't happen.
Does it get better? Does it get better from here? I don't know. Like, what does it take? What's the most defunct run game in football right now? Maybe that can get them back on track. But honestly, I feel like we're going to be the get right game for them. I just don't have any answers for this defense right now. It's a fundamental collapse through 2 weeks, and it's in the one area they actually had a strength in on defense, which was their front seven. But now that's looking like a complete weakness. Their secondary is probably still a weakness, but we don't know. I mean, every time they've been tested, they've been beat, I guess. Like Jalen Jones doesn't know how to find a football down the field on a 20-yard underthrow.
That was
like,
rough. When I saw that, I'm like, you know what? Of course, yes, he was a 7th round pick. He probably doesn't need to be in the position to have to be the one defending that throw.
That's true. That's true. A 7th round pick, he's probably a special teamer at best typically, but no, he's our best corner on our roster right now through 2 weeks.
As you can tell, this is definitely a game that makes you go back and literally question everything because we're unraveling
we're flying over the time limit for the show too, but it's just like, it's something that like these things can't happen. Like it's one thing, like if Willis has the game of his life and beats you, whatever, make him beat you. Josh Jacobs running for 200 yards in the first half, or that offense running for 200 yards in the first half, that can't happen. Bring 9 linebackers on the field if you have to. I don't care if you don't even roster a safety this week.
Surely they knew that was going to be the plan, whether it was going to be Jordan Love or Malik Willis. Like they were going to try and run the ball because of what Houston just did.
Yeah, and then every time they threw the ball, it's like these backed off zones, and it's like, just press him. Like it's Malik Willis. Make him fit it into a tight window. Like it blows my mind. Just the game plan, the performance from the players that were on the field out there, it's all inexcusable from this team. And again, we're talking playoffs here. We're never talking playoffs with this team. It's probably not happening, but like just even getting wins at this point with this type of defense, you're not winning games with this defensive performance. Because if the Colts offense even showed up today, the Packers offense would be incentivized to score more, and they would have put up like 30 in this one. They just didn't have to in this game because the Colts offense was putrid as well. Just a fundamental breakdown of everything on this Colts team in this one. It just can't happen. They're lucky that it was a 6-point game. They were lucky last week was a 2-point game. They were really lucky this week was a 6-point game. But that's all we have for today before Jake and I end up breaking all of our contract limits with
Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah, it was great, I guess. I don't know. But before we get out of here, I do want to remind you guys that our friends over at Locked On NFL are now 2 shows every day featuring Tyler Rowland in the morning and then Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk afterwards. Add in the Locked On local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight all in 30 minutes, or if it were us, 40 minutes, I guess, today. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen over at Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. A lot of Doom posting over there coming this week. Also subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. More Doom posting on there as well, because we love your guys' ratings reviews despite the horrendous showing from the Colts. But you guys have a great rest of your day. You know, we're gonna disconnect from social media because that'll make the rest of our day great. But you guys do what you have to do, because we will see you back here for our Anthony Richardson breakdown tomorrow afternoon.